Hello. So I'm more interested in learning Rust right now, but ultimately you will need to deploy it and test it and make it available to other users or do projects on Fiverr or for your employer. So it's good to just actually know how to deploy your executable. Today we're looking at a API written in Rust. So the web hosting, which is specific to me, but I can really recommend them, webdock.io. Now, I've created a brand new VPS server on this IP address, and the /foo is the endpoint of the API that I've written in Rust. And if you want to copy this, you can get this from my GitHub page, which I'll put a link to in the description. The key things here really are to be able to use the server and Nginx and systemd. So I'm going to assume that you can copy, clone my AX2 repo, copy it to your web server, and then to set up a reverse proxy, which you can do by following the notes or the how-to guide, which is available with Webdock. It's not actually specific to them as such, really. I mean, these instructions would work for any instance of Nginx running on a lemp stack Linux, Nginx, MySQL, PHP, um, sudo nano, etc. Nginx sites enabled / here they're doing it for Python server, but that's just a name, so we'll call it rust-server. Once you've created that file with your favorite text editor, nano, v, whatever, you need to come in here into the file which you've just created. And what you will need to do is copy and paste this into the file. And instead of square bracket server-ip, let me show you what I've done on mine. So let's just copy that command. In fact, I could have just shown you here, couldn't I? So same as what you've just seen me copy, sudo nano, etc. Nginx sites enabled rust-server. They'd called theirs python-server. You can call it whatever you want. And that's the server name. So instead of the red square brackets with IP address, you actually need to put in the correct public IP address of your server, which you will get from the dashboard when you create your server, your VPS server with your Webdock account. Proxy pass. So HTTP, obviously if you were doing secure, it'd be Vanessa on the end. 127.0.0.1, port 8000. I've actually modified my code since the GitHub one, but it doesn't really matter. You can choose whatever. Make sure it's a high port above 1024, I believe. Yeah. So make it a high port number. Once you've done that, you will also just need to. I found it best to actually, in these notes, it said do sudo nginx-t, which I did. Then you should see this, which I did. The configuration file, syntax is okay, the test is successful. I had an error when I tried to do sudo systemctl restart nginx, and I found that my way was to reboot the server. Now I know that was not a good idea in production and so on, but yeah, if you're just doing this in a test environment and you just need to get it working, then reboot the server, run, and actually, yeah, when you reboot the server, you'll find that Nginx has already come up. So the server is running, and do we see it's actively running? So all of this here shows up because I've configured systemd, system AX. So let's have a look at that as well. So it may seem overwhelming, but it's only two things you need to do, really. You need to set up Nginx, which I've just shown you, and the notes are here. And the other thing was to demonize your application, which the notes are here as well.
Again, the notes here are for Python deployment. So you can actually strip out some of the bits like gunicorn and user bin gunicorn. Basically, just substitute Rust in the name of your app wherever you see anything specific to Python or the name of their app. So I've just left the binary in the home directory just there, which is probably not best practice, but is running, and that's the aim of this was just to actually get it running. I will then move on to look at best practice. This is a test deployment. So really what I wanted to just show was an API written in Rust using Axum with the Utoipa Swagger interface. There we go, reload it. So this is all provided by the the Utoipa crate, which you use with your Rust code. So effectively what you've built is an API with web server with an OpenAI Swagger interface, which is pretty amazing just for one file or one piece of code. If you want to see the code, come to rggh.github.com, and it's my project there, which is AX2, Axum API with Swagger UI. And if you go into source, you'll see dev HTTP is just some test code. You can ignore that. So the main.rs, and how many lines? 87 lines. It's the imports that do the hard work. So don't do what I did and type Utopia. It's Utoipa. Include it there. You need to specify the paths. This is the code here, which actually is creating the Swagger interface. This here is, again, Swagger specific, but if you follow Jeremy Chone on YouTube, you'll see pretty much this, and this. So all of this code here really is actually the API. The bare minimum. With two handlers. And again, you probably, if you've watched Jeremy's videos, you would know that you can actually then create a handler, and then you merge. What you could do is then you could create a separate function, and in that function you would then merge the handlers using .merge, as well, merge appears there as well. So all I wanted really to do is just show how you could use Nginx and a Webdock Ubuntu server to host your API and expose it to the public internet. So if that's of interest or you've got any questions, drop me a line. I'll put the link to Webdock in the description, and feel free to clone my code and or sign up. You can sign up to Webdock for 24 hours without actually paying anything. So that at least lets you have a guided tour of what you would get, test it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.